Oh, for the LAP, yeah. That's good. That's good, yeah. Testing, test.
Said you came back, but yeah, I did.
Yeah, we record generally if there's a... Mute yourself for the meeting there.
Oh, what the heck? Okay. Go away. Good, bright, sunny morning to everyone. It's a bit of a change. It's been monsoon season out in my neck of the woods. I'd like to welcome everyone to the regular committee of the whole meeting for Wednesday, February the 8th. My name is Ian Morrison. I'm the director for Electoral Area F, Couch Lake South Scotts Falls. I'd like to begin by first asking everyone to ensure their electronic devices are either on mute or silent or vibrate, and begin with acknowledging the First Nations of our area and their stewardship of the lands in which we're meeting. Thank you. We have a busy day ahead of us, so we'll turn to Mr. Robbins and ask him to get us started here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everybody. First up on your agenda, the approval of your agenda, please, as circulated.
Moved and seconded around the room. Any discussion, additions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Are there any opposed? None opposed, motion carries. Mr. Robbins, M1.
Moving to adoption of minutes. M1 is the Committee of the Whole. The recommendation that the minutes of the Committee of the Whole meeting of January 25th, 2023 be adopted.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries. Mr. Robbins.
M2, the Special Committee of the Whole meeting of January 26, 2023. It was pointed out. Thank you to Director Douglas. R6, number 12, in the minutes of that date should be referencing Function 530, Upper River Stabilization and funding from reserves. And so with that correction, a motion to adopt those minutes of January 26, 23.
As corrected. Moved, seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries.
Nothing arising from the minutes, which moves us to public input period. We have no one registered online, so we move to those that perhaps are.
Our opportunity to invite Mr. Evans up. Oh, there it is.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. I'm Cliff Evans from Shawnigan Lake with the Shawnigan Basin Society.
Mr. Evans, can you direct the mic a little towards you so everybody at home can hear your velvety voice?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, about 3 or 4 weeks ago, I showed this committee a culvert at Shawnigan Lake at Williams Park, and the culvert wasn't engineered quite properly. Well, I'm really happy to tell you today, and I hope we have a photo of the culvert. There's a culvert today, 3 or 4 weeks, and that thing has a new culvert in, and the path has been recovered. There's no longer a trench of water running down the path and putting sand into the Shawnigan Creek that has spawning salmon in it now. And this is very important, and I've been around here a lot of years, and this is the first time I've ever seen action like this so fast. So I would say kudos to the parks and to the board. I can really see a difference. Here's the a photo of the culvert coming under the Shawnigan Lake Road. And last time I showed you that photo, it was full of garbage and junk. And can we have the next photo? That shows the size of the culvert they've put in there now going underneath the path. Way bigger culvert. They've put the rocks in, and they even had a bale of straw in further down. And I really like to see cooperation like this, and glad to see the change in the board. I mean, this hasn't happened before, and I've been around a long time. So I'd like to just give kudos out to the board and to the staff for doing this. And if the Basin Society had a little bit of funding, we could do a lot more testing. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. I think you just called our staff rock stars.
I'm gonna give you a high five.
Mr. Robbins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Moving through agendas to delegations. We have one delegation for you today from the Cowichan Housing Association. Milena Patino. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Come on up.
And we.
I'm just going to sort of give some context. There we go. My name is Shelley Cook. I'm the Executive Director of Cowichan Housing Association. I'm here to support the presentation by Milena Patnode, our Community Development Coordinator. I just wanted to set it in context a little bit, and I'll be back soon to talk to you about how we're building out our different service streams. So when I was here last time in September, I talked about a sort of developing our services under three main service streams. The first is housing loss prevention and navigation. The second is research, planning and coordination, and the last is the affordable housing development. So Milena's presentation and her work falls under the planning, research, and coordination. And so I'll be speaking to the slide at the end that speaks to the point-in-time count that's upcoming. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, and come on up. And I'm just going to remind directors that we're trying to condense the time that we're spending on delegations, and we're going to try to purposefully steer away from any sort of discussions around budget and the like. That's not what they're here to do today. So with that, looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you.
Please proceed.
Thanks. Is there PowerPoint or? Thank you. I did have the formatting correct too. That N isn't supposed to be on a separate line. My OCD is not liking that, but good morning. My name is Milena Patnode, and as Shelley mentioned, I'm the Community Development Coordinator at Cowichan Housing Association. So my role is with two main initiatives. One is leading the development and implementation of coordinated access in our community, in our region. And the second one is poverty reduction planning for mainly the regions of Duncan and North Cowichan. So this morning we wanted to come and share with you three main initiatives that we're leading right now, and just give you more information and an opportunity to ask any questions. So the three, the three initiatives, as I mentioned, are the Poverty Reduction Planning Initiative, the Integrated Coordinated Access, and then the Regional Point-in-Time Count. So the poverty reduction planning, this project is being funded under UBCM's Poverty Reduction Planning and Action Program. The application was submitted by the City of Duncan, and the partnering proponents are City of Duncan, Municipality of North Cowichan, and Cowichan Housing Association. The whole region is under consideration through this work with a focus on North Cowichan and Duncan, which will also complement the work that Social Planning Cowichan has been doing with Ladysmith and Lake Cowichan in the planning and implementation of their own poverty reduction strategies. So for the work taking place in the region of Duncan and North Cowichan to date, what we've been doing is we've contracted out a consultant to do a literature review of main key reports from the last 5 to 7 years, pre-COVID and then post-COVID, just to really get a good sense of what in all of these reports, what the recommendations have been in our region, and what has been identified as priorities, what has been successfully, what have we been successful with, and then what we still have to work towards. So that literature review is just being completed now, and then we've established a date for a regional engagement session. March 8th is the date that we've set for that, where the consultant will come and share about her work and her findings, and then bringing together important stakeholders, community partners, all levels of government and service providers to really brainstorm and talk about the findings and what the needs and gaps are in our community to start working towards this poverty reduction plan and implementation. So there's 2 phases with the UBCM program, which I'm assuming you're all aware of, but the first phase is the planning, and then the second phase is the implementation. So we're in the planning phase right now. So so the reason that we're using the regional engagement sessions is really a platform to have these discussions, be community-led, and identifying key community priorities. And some of the main themes that we've already been seeing through a lot of these reports is the reestablishment or reinvigoration of the Coalition for Housing and Homelessness. And so our priority is really not to predetermine anything that's going to happen, but really present the key themes and then just create a space for these key discussions to come out. So that's on March 8th. And so we want to be talking about the community priorities, a governance structure, so whether that's the same as it was with the Coalition or something different. And then just how we're going to operate this body once it's formed again, whether we need to receive more funding for a coordinator or what that piece would look like to ensure its sustainability. And then so obviously part of it is just wanting to let you know this is here and that the invitation to join will be coming soon. So we really hope to see some or all of you at this session to contribute and be a part of that process. And this piece of work really is going to lay the groundwork to the second initiative, which is the integrated coordinated access. So identifying these key priorities is really essential to starting us off in a good way with this, which is through the Reaching Home, the federal program Reaching Home. And as a community who receives designated funding, the Cowichan Valley receives designated funding through this Reaching Home program. We're mandated to develop and implement a coordinated access system in our region. And so the scope is the whole CVRD. And so coordinated access, just to define it, involves a connected system where individuals and families who are experiencing homelessness or at risk of homelessness are directed to community access points where a shared assessment tool is used by trained staff to evaluate an individual or family's depth of need, prioritize them for housing supports, and help match them to available housing-focused interventions. So all this to say that the key objectives with coordinated access are to help communities ensure fairness and prioritize people most in need of assistance, to help more people move through the system faster, to reduce the number of new entries into homelessness, improve data collection and quality. So I actually gave you all, Rebecca sent you all a resource that I had created around coordinated access to give you more information and background about this. Because it is like this really big nebulous thing that we're just trying to figure out as we go along. But all of the different points on this diagram, I like this diagram because it really lays out all these key areas that we're going to have to, as a community, identify, create and identify. So these community engagement sessions and of identifying the priorities really links to this, where we're going to have to create, define what our access points are going to be, how we're going to do initial triage and diversion, how we're going to assess, how we're going to prioritize. And a lot of this is already happening in our community. We have prioritization tables, we have tenanting tables. So our goal is really to just build off of what is already existing in community, and then just and then fill in the gaps and the things that we have yet to establish. So currently, right now, we are working on some of the poverty reduction planning pieces to inform this plan. But then also we have been working with key Indigenous partners to center Indigenous knowledge and create a guiding framework to help just ground this work in couch and cultural teachings. And then from there, we'll build it up and develop our framework using all of these different points. We also are in the process of doing systems mapping and resource inventory. And then there's a group of people across British Columbia that are in conversation with BC Housing, working on HIFIS, which is the data collection database that we are asking BC Housing to open up so we can all access it and use it as our coordinated access data system. It's already in place. They're already using it for BC Housing supported housing. So we're just asking, can we use it too, so we don't have to create a new database? So that's happening right now. And so, yeah, I think that's the main points I wanted to share with you. All of these points are going to be decided upon at the community level. So it's really meant to be a community-led initiative. We need to find how this is going to be, how it's going to be of benefit to the people living on the streets, and how it's going to be of benefit to the service providers. That's really how we're going to be able to make this systems change, is for it to be beneficial for everyone involved. So it's a big task, it's a multi-year task, and we're just getting started. And so once again, you know, as we go through this process, just we want to make sure that all of you are involved, and the government is, the municipal government is involved. And I also am willing to speak to your individual councils if that would be helpful about this as well. But yes, thank you. So Shelley's going to talk about the point in time count, and then if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
If we're going to go on any further, we may need a motion to extend,
And you were about to do that.
and I would move that.
Seconder? All those in favor? Any opposed? Please continue.
Thank you very much. We'll be very quickly, we'll move very quickly to allow time for the questions. So we haven't had a point in time count locally since March 2020, often done in March or April to have consistency. So this is also known as a street count, a homeless count. Really what we're doing is trying to get a sense of who is homeless in a particular point in time, which is why the name for the count. We refer to that as a snapshot of homelessness. homelessness. We are also pushing it out a little broader to try and understand hidden homelessness. So this is people who are couch surfing, people who are on the cusp of homelessness. So we can sort of get a better sense of not just who's out there. So this also involves our shelters, our people where people are temporarily housed. So we're getting a sense of where people are across the community, including those that are currently sleeping rough, unsheltered on the street. It is a very much a broad research initiative that's inclusive of all populations, and really is about promoting evidence-based programs and services on which we sort of, this information allows us to base our planning. So as Malena's referenced HIFIS as an important database for us to understand what's going on within the people in need in our community. So too is a regional point-in-time count, a very helpful tool. So we've engaged somebody who used to be an employee of CHA, who's really close to the ground and knows the community to do this work. It's really essential. But it's very much a peer-involved or peer-led. So we're getting people who are currently experiencing homelessness or were recently housed to provide us input, to provide leadership and advice and direction at every step of the turn. So we'll be back. We'll be talking more about this, but it'll be happening in April. It's April 11th and 12th are the tentative dates at this point in time. And so 11th will be the shelter counts. On the 12th will be the actual volunteers, what we call as the magnet events to draw people in, and the teams will be going out to do the count. So these pieces of work are happening. They're incredibly important, but they are complex, very involved pieces of work that really stretch across our communities and our various partners. Thank you. Do you want to come up in case there's questions?
Thanks so much. You could both be up there. Do we have any of the directors? Director Abbott, please.
Thank you for that presentation. Just a quick question on March 8th. What time is that presentation?
We haven't, we just set the date yesterday, so we're not sure of the time yet, but definitely either a half day or a full day. We'll be sending out a save the date hopefully by the end of this week or next week, so that information will be shared soon.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Director Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hey, Shelley, how you doing?
Hi, Vicky.
Good. You guys do a very difficult job. I know you do. But there's a couple of things that I do have a couple of concerns about. And I'm picking up on the keywords that are in the presentation here. And there's a lot of pretty much the same stuff, which is review, engage, improve, groundwork, etc. And you use the word nebulous as well. I'm all in favor of planning, but how is this actually translating into the help that these guys need, these people need?
Thank you for the question, Director Wilson. I think this, and again, I think as we get into the process, we start concretizing some of these concepts, and it becomes a little bit easier for people to understand. Systems analysis or system change, it's part of complexity. Again, this was my postdoctoral research fellowship, looked at complexity science. And so these are very complex principles and ideas that are being applied to social issues. And so this is the direction we need to be thinking about everything as an integrated system. So what we've done in the past is really looked at things in terms of silos. And what this approach does is it tells us that everything is interconnected in different ways. And if we make changes over here, there'll be impacts of a potentially negative variety. So we have to be thinking about things as a whole as we sort of structure it. And so it'll become very clear as we move through this process, but we are not imposing sort of our beliefs and expectations around how things need to work. This is about sort of working with the strengths and the opportunities that exist within communities to make sure that people are not telling their story over and over again, that they are being bounced around a system of services. This will cause things to work much better. And I'm not suggesting that our community doesn't work well together and people aren't already finding ways. What this does is it formalizes and really sort of legitimizes that, and really so we see that in terms of the federal and provincial government. There's all these coordinated tables, you know, these integrated initiatives, and this is all part of that same work and this idea that we all need to be working together because there's impacts for the RCMP if we're thinking about this. There's impacts for business owners if we're doing this. So we have to be thinking about this in a collective way, and that's how we're going to get to some real meaningful solutions.
Follow up, please, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I understand all that. I know it's complex. But CHA has been here for 4 years, 5 years, something like that, 4 or 5 years.
2015, 2018 was a referendum.
And we're still using the same words. There's my problem there. So basically, are we now stepping outside of the CHA mandate? This is what I want to guard against, that we're not doing things that other people are already doing and duplicating.
I can certainly speak to that. So in terms of the lead up around this, I had many conversations with Reaching Home. They were looking, so again, to sort of look for a provider and an organization. I would argue that this is exactly the right fit for CHA as an organization that doesn't provide direct service outside our support for housing loss prevention. We are not sort of kind of on that sort of same level as other service providers. We are sort of a higher level organization. We have a lot of research capacity. I myself have a doctorate, which really helps to inform the work through a research lens. And so this is a fairly new initiative. This actually will move our work along a lot quicker. And so talking about things in a way that speaks to the complexity, we can't, sort of boil things down to really simplified terms. I've talked with my colleagues over the years, and we sort of laugh about how complicated our work, and we can't sort of necessarily summarize it in easy, sort of bite-sized chunks. This is human beings, this is relationships, this is a very complex network of services and how people move through those things. And so this is, I think, with respect, Director Wilson, exactly the work we need to do. There was no other organization in the community that stepped up. I sat back and waited and watched, our board waited and watched for coordinated access. There was no organization across the valley, as well as in the point in time count. We were the only organization that stepped up, and I think increasingly we are trying to build capacity both within the community and our organization to fill those very important gaps. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Shelley. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So I've got Director Staples, Manhas, McGonigal, and myself, and Director Martman, and I'm really going to encourage everyone, this isn't the time for deep dive, if we could please. So I will go to Director Staples next.
We have to share a microphone. Thank you for the presentation, and I think one of the things that I've learned about coordinated access is that you can't access a lot of funding opportunities for communities unless you have a coordinated access table. So this actually allows us to connect with funding opportunities that we would not otherwise be eligible for, that do provide those direct services and direct housing for people. So thank you for taking this on. I just have I think that the reason that Director Abbott may have been asking about the March 8th is because we're actually in the CVRD all day that day. So if you did just decide that yesterday, if there's maybe a just decision to possibly look for a day that we could attend or a time, but after our days, they don't end until 4 or 5 usually, so just to put that out there.
Yeah, that's important.
And so the other thing that I wanted to ask is the communities that have coordinated access on Vancouver Island, do you know which other communities have coordinated access tables?
The communities that receive designated funding are Nanaimo and Victoria. So they're both in process of creating their coordinated access systems as well. They're both further along than we are, but it's still in process for them, and they've been part of the discussions about HIFIS and with BC Housing as well. We really, not to go on about your question, but it would be maybe important to share as well that through our discussions, we're actually with BC Housing and the use of HIFIS, we're trying to create it so it's more of a regional database for Vancouver Island, as we know that our homeless population moves transiently through the island. So rather than it just being Cowichan, Nanaimo, and Victoria, we want it to be shared.
Thank you. That was part of my reason, because I was just meeting with the mayor from Up Island, and so they don't have coordinated access, but we were talking about the fact that this is, there is a certain subset of people that do move through our communities, and so that's fantastic to hear. Thank you.
Just as a further point, when we took this on, I said very early on that it was really important to be working with the other communities and develop a coordinated approach.
Excellent. Thank you, Director Staples. Director Manhas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Ms. Cook and Ms. Patnote. Wow, Cowichan Housing Association has sure morphed into something that was not envisioned by the referendum. The original point was to get it for attainable housing, because I know how this all came about. because I know we started this whole process at Community Futures Calgary, passed it on to social planning morphed this into what we are now today. So I'm just thinking that, are we really inside our box? Like, you know, we're gonna be discussing R3 later on today, which is a $10,000 allocation from Function 121, from economic development to do with housing, workforce housing.
Hang on, order. We're going to be entertaining these folks back at a later date to have more budget discussion and more work plan discussion, not the very intent of their work plan. So if you've got comments in regards to the specifics of this or questions in regards to the specifics of this, I encouraged everyone that we're not doing a deep dive on the intent or of the function of this organization today. This is on the presentation that they brought today. So if you've got further on that specifically, please proceed.
Mr. Chair, with all due respect, the function of Cowichan Housing Association is a housing function.
Sorry, when
And
the
this is
chair
what we're
calls
asking.
order, this is not a debate. So if you want a vote to see if the chair shall be sustained, you can call for that vote, otherwise move on with your line of question.
I will ask one question. I've been looking for the list of the board of directors online. Like, you used to be on there before, now for a while they haven't not been on there. Can we get a list of the board of directors by the end of the day today?
I'd be happy to send that. We are redoing our whole website, which is a very large process. So there's a number of things that we haven't updated and we'll be launching with our brand new website. So I'm happy to send you the list of board members. I will speak to the earlier point real quickly because this is one of our service streams.
I'm
And
gonna ask you
affordable
to
housing
not-
is still a
I'm
priority.
going to ask you to not.
you. Yep.
So does everybody understand what the intent of what we're here to do today is? There's going to be other opportunities for us to discuss budget and the entire focus of this organization. I've had requests from people around this table to tighten up what we're doing around delegations, and that's part of what we're here to do. It's not my decision, it's input from the folks around this table. So can we try and stick to that, please? I'll go to Director McGonigal next.
I will do my best, Mr. Chair. Through you, if I may, thank you for the presentation, appreciate that. What we're finding in the outlying areas in the rural communities is a lack of concrete numbers. And I look forward to the regional point in time through a regional approach so we can have true concrete numbers on what service delivery we are lacking within those areas that are outside of the core. Will you be reaching out throughout the region to community groups within the west, the south, to help with the count, point-in-time count?
Thank you so much for that question. That's already happening. So we have to have sort of core organizations in each community and mobilize the appropriate groups in those communities to ensure that we're actually involving the people that need to be involved, but know where to go to actually identify the people who are currently unhoused. So this is very much a regional approach. Milena is from that area. So it is something that we are thinking long and hard about how to ensure that we have good representation across the region. And that is a large part of the discussion that's happening.
And just a follow-up comment, if I may. I think that will help in the planning process of those gaps that are identified for true numbers and not anecdotal numbers as we're getting from some people in the transient population, especially as you speak of in the summer months within the west area.
Thank you. Director Martman, Stone, and myself to close.
Great, thank you, and thank you for the presentation, and I'm interested in the diagram that you presented on the integrated housing coordinated access. It looks very linear, and I suspect this is anything but linear. So I'm curious about at what point you would discuss, or we would discuss, how you move people through, or people move through the process, disengage, re-engage. Do they start from the beginning? Like, how, I see a lot of loops perhaps occurring in here. Maybe you do too. Any comment on that?
Sure. Thank you for your question. And it certainly isn't linear. And I think one of the things with coordinated access is that each community is developing a system that's going to be individualized and appropriate for them. So Even when we're talking to other communities who are venturing on this journey as well, they're developing it in different ways. Some of the things that I have heard so far with the work that we've already done is that we really want our access points to be decentralized. So there's some communities who access point is centralized, and there would just be like one phone number that everyone would call to enter the system, or one door. But for obvious reasons, I think it makes sense that the CVRD would be decentralized. These will be key access points where anyone who wants to enter the system would come in and be met with somebody who's trained to serve them, and it's going to be a standardized assessment tool across the region. So to answer your question directly, if somebody left and went back into the system, they would go back into one of these access points, and that would be one of the key aspects of HIFIS, is it's really telling a story of that person's journey. So they've gone out and they've come back in, they went to Victoria, they've come back. So it's really meeting them where they're at and having that laid out and identified in this database, so we can just pick up where they've left off, meet them where they're at, and find out what it is, what's their greatest need at that point, or needs at that point. So I think HIFIS will be a key tool for that. And then just the relationships that we're building with a lot of the unhoused community members that we're serving. And then just being in partnership with key organizations that are doing this work. We're already communicating with organizations and working together, so this will just strengthen it even more.
Thank you, Director Stone.
Thank you both for the presentation and for the work. It's an important part of, and I think you described it so well about that there's a lot of conjecture and assumptions and stuff that are made about our homeless populations and how they migrate or where they come from or whatever, and this coordinated access along with the data sharing helps to provide a more complete picture of people's journey through homelessness and hopefully to being housed. And I think it's just important for us to all recognize that the functions of Cowichan Housing Association, including the functions that are supported by the CVRD, are broad-based and really contribute to, finding homes for people, whether, wherever they are in the housing spectrum, from homelessness to underhoused and so on. And I just want to say that I thank you for this, because that data is so important to actually give back up the truth that I think we see on the streets or that we hear about from people's stories, but provide the data overlay that validates them, right? And as a doctor, and I want to say thank you, Dr. Cook, as is appropriate for a doctor, and for the skills that you bring with the resume and the background that you have are really powerful in validating the work that is being done. And that's separate from the funding that's provided to get people into homes. And it's important that we remember that around this table, that there are different functions of CHA, some of which are supported directly by the CVRD, and some you come here today to help inform us of the issues within the Valley. So thank you for your work.
Like a quick comment, I think anecdotally, we believe the numbers have increased significantly. We're seeing it in all sort of populations of individuals. We're seeing an expansion of the types of individuals who are falling into homelessness, and we're seeing a heightened acuity of need. So this will absolutely give us sort of the meat that we need based on the observations people are currently making. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Director Stone. And I'm going to go to the point-in-time count as well, because, in conjunction with our conversations with local RCMP and mental health folks and the like, I'm kind of curious about two things in that there's very mobile homeless populations that, living rough in their vehicles, and as well as that hidden homeless that you spoke of. And that's kind of an interesting one, because how do you count the hidden? And I'm thinking specifically about those folks that we may see in our communities on occasion that might be pulled over in a park for an overnight or something like that. How are we going to assist you in connecting to make sure that all those folks that should be part of the count are actually become data points and people within that system?
Thank you so much for the question. I think this is the sort of the challenge of point in time. You're getting that snapshot in time, but this is where working with our really important community partners who know that, say, you know, at the Canadian Tire car lot, there tends to be at night a lot of different vehicles parked there. This is common. We're seeing an increase in car dwelling as people are finding it harder and harder to find housing. So I think your point is a very valid one around how do you access and how do you start to figure out who's hidden homelessness. So we would think about car dwelling maybe as part of that. A lot of what we see in terms of hidden homelessness can also be people at points of transition. So talking with school districts and finding out they often know who the kids are that are sleeping on the couches, right? Talking with employers about the staff they know are sleeping in their cars or sleeping on, a co-worker's couch. And so all those are ways, and it's really about how we're working and accessing the really important groups in community. And again, it's not going to be a perfect count. We're not going to probably capture everyone. This is why it's a snapshot, but it gives us a really, really good sense on which we can start to base our decisions.
That's fantastic, and I want to wrap up by thanking you both for coming. I think this has been very informative for us, and we're obviously looking forward to you coming back and discussing in more detail some of the finer points of the association and the work that you do and how our funding is impacting the community. So with that, thank you very much.
Thank you. I look forward to that.
Mr. Robbins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Moving through agenda item 6, there is no correspondence. Under 7 information, there's one piece for your information. A letter from and referral from the BC Timber Sales with regards to their 2023 Pacific Maritime Forest Stewardship Plan. There was just a correction. There was a subsequent email sent out to the board with regards to the letter. It references the valley, but the subsequent letter references an overlap of the area with a watershed, likely within the regional district. And so there's a subtle difference in the letter with regards to where this plan covers.
Thank you, Mr. Robbins. This is an information item. I found the map very interesting. I go to Director Markman. Thoughts?
That's my question for staff, because I read this with brand new baby eyes. I don't know what I don't know here. So anybody in staff could help me understand the importance of bringing information like this to the board.
Ms. Miles Wilson.
Okay, this is working? Yeah.
Yep.
Through the chair, in response to Director Martman, so this is a cyclical consultation exercise that they undertake for BC's timber sales lands. This is related to the South Island Natural Resource District only, and so in the map, you'll see that there's BC timber sales areas peppered throughout the map. This consultation exercise is basically is open for a time, and the forest stewardship plan is basically a tool in which BC Timber Sales outlines how they comply with a whole body of regulations. So fish, wildlife, watershed. It's very comprehensive. And they have to demonstrate how they comply with the Forest and Range Practices Act. So it's a tool to showcase how they are regulated holistically, and it gives the public an opportunity to better understand how they manage those lands. I don't know if that helps at all.
Thank you. It does. I think the question, my follow-up question would be: does the CVRD respond normally to this, and when would we see that?
Ms. Miles Wilson, it's my understanding we haven't in the past.
Yeah, so I can't speak to back in the past. It is an opportunity to share with the public as well that this consultation exercise is underway. If there's anyone on the board that should have an interest in this subject matter or expertise, that's in other communities that I've been, there's an opportunity to provide some input if that was an interest to the board, but really it is an information item, so it's at your discretion.
Okay, I'm going to pick someone to speak about this because he knows a lot more about it than I do. Director McGonigal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think it's important to note that this is a forest stewardship plan for BC Timber Sales, which was implemented during the softwood lumber disagreement as a tool to set stumpage rates for tree farm licenses where we cannot be seen as subsidizing those companies moving forward. Those companies are also in a 5-year cycle for those reviews. It's up to those in the public that wish to have some input on that, to seek that. I don't think it should be the board or any governing body that puts the input, but if any individual has any aspects that they'd like for input, this is the opportunity for that input.
Thank you, Director McGonigal. Any other discussion on this item? Director Nicholson.
I noticed that one of their areas is in the Coke Silo watershed. And it strikes me that there's very little crown land in our region, and forestry is having a huge impact on our water and our watersheds. And with climate change, it seems that it would be useful to remind BC Timber Sales that this needs to be taken more seriously into account. Practices have not changed very much over the last, in my career, which started in forestry. And I am really concerned, and I think it would be wise of us to remind them that we are very concerned about our watersheds, particularly on the eastern side of Vancouver Island.
Thank you, Director Nicholson. Any other comment? Seeing none, Mr. Robbins.
Moving through your agenda to reports, R1 is a report from the Planning Strategic Initiatives Division with regards to Regional Planning Service. There is a recommendation. Would you like me to read that out?
Well, I think we've got Ms. Breen before us here, so maybe we can hear a little bit about what she has in the way of a presentation, and then we might have a recommendation. Ms. Breen, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, directors. Just a few slides. I believe they're in your package this morning. Okay, thank you. So this report is coming forward to you today. It's the beginning of a new term. You're in the beginning and middle stages of strategic planning. For regional planning managers and directors in the region, we meet quarterly, usually, and discuss matters of mutual interest. And we have found, particularly with the work that we've all been doing on our OCPs, that there might be opportunities for coordination on some things such as climate change plans for greenhouse gas emission reductions, which we're required to include in our OCPs, and other matters. So this is being brought forward for your consideration, and as part of that, it just seemed that it would be of interest to the board to take a look back, and actually it goes back almost 50 years in terms of the regional planning initiatives that the CVRD has undertaken. And I won't go through all of these because they're in your package, but this kind of provides a little bit more of a visual to see the different efforts that have happened throughout the region. And it was interesting to me going back through the records that the CVRD has on this, that if you read the initial reports back into the 70s, it could have been written today. The 5 options that were in the report could be the 5 options that could be presented from staff today. So the changes, the challenges that were identified in those early reports, growth management, coordinated planning, more efficiencies are the challenges that we have here today. So I'm saying looking back, and the report is making a recommendation to the committee to advance a resolution that would ask municipalities to consider this, and then write back to us with their thoughts on reestablishing a regional planning service, which would formalize more of a coordination that's happening kind of ad hoc between the municipalities and ourselves at this point in time. you'll see that there's been this evolution that's gone through the years. There's been various attempts to look at a regional growth strategy. There's been money that's been supported from the province in the 90s that then wasn't advanced after 1999. There's nothing in our records that, at least formally, that show any resolutions in terms of what happened at that point in time. There might be some folks at the table who are aware of what transpired. And then this evolution that went into a regional sustainability strategy in 2010 to 2013, that was developed and that didn't advance either. Then in 2018, Cowichan 2050 came. And the three prongs there, the same three prongs, growth management, First Nations, and climate change were kind of the backbones of that. Then COVID came, and that was kind of quietly shelved for a period of time. Now in 2021 and 2022, the various municipalities and ourselves have gone through either the harmonization, modernization of the OCPs, the electoral areas, and also the update of the OCPs in the municipalities. So that brings us to what now? And what is the, is it status quo going forward in terms of regional planning? What is the best way for us at a staff level in terms of coordinating? Staff understands that at the board level you'll be understanding or looking at models as well. So without kind of going any further, what are the benefits? Why do it? Building collaborative regional working relationships, improving communication and information sharing, coordination, fosters a proactive, integrated, and collaborative regional planning, and deepens relationships and facilitates regional protocols with First Nations. Recommendation in front of you today is that a letter be sent to municipal councils inviting input on a potential establishment of a regional planning service. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Breen. We've had this at our available to us for a little bit. I think it's a fairly straightforward recommendation. I've got Directors Stone, Acton, and Justice on the list. Director Stone.
Thank you. I would move the recommendation, and I'd like to speak to it if I get a seconder.
Appears we have a seconder.
Definitely sort of conceptually supportive of the idea. Practically, I'm not so sure. But I think this is a good first step to sort of pull the temperature of the regional municipalities and talk about it. And the reason I say I'm not so sure practically is just monitoring the process and progress of things like the OCP work at the regional district. And just by the nature of it, it's not a criticism of the organization, but it's slow. It takes much longer than I think municipalities would accept for planning exercises, right? So then it creates concern about the ability to move quickly if we're sort of bound by this regional context and what that might look like. However, I think that if you think of it at that sort of not the practicality or the experience or the observations over the last time period, I think it's a necessity when you think about the regional growth, the challenges that we have around climate change, about everything that we're hearing today, we've heard this morning and we will hear in the future, everything from housing to climate to the health of our economies in the region would be greatly benefited by deeper regional collaboration. I'm just not sure, and that's why I'm happy to support the resolution so that the councils can have that discussion about the practicality of it in the light of the challenges of regional governance and the way that regional districts work, and the necessity to move quickly at a municipal level to deliver on things like massive investments in housing. By the time this function would be established, I think we'd have already needed to make huge progress on the actual implementation of a lot of these strategies. And just experience here with different functions, getting them established and stuff can take a long time. But I'm definitely in support of the concept. Hopefully, if we do move forward with it, we can find a way to make it practically efficient and effective. Thanks.
Thank you. We have a resolution on the floor. I go to Director Acton and Justice. Director Acton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I unfortunately will not be supporting this resolution. I think it's quite irresponsible of us to not try and resurrect the Cowichan 2050. It's pretty much had it had the exact same goals outlined. And that kind of activity is exactly what the public doesn't like, us creating plans that go nowhere. So if, for example, our HOCP and MOCP, when sorry, I don't want to start a snowball effect here. If we had been presented with our HOCP and MOCP, the costs, I'm not even sure we would have even gone down that route, the costs and the capacity. And then eventually we did get a cost and it was 400,000. Now we're at $1 million, and I'm not even sure if that 400,000 included our bylaws. So we still have that whole process to do. And so at this table, we hear a lot about capacity and funding. So at this time, I don't think this is a really smart thing to do and to put on to staff, all of our staff at the regional district and the staff at the municipalities. And I just would prefer that we have the chance to finish our HOCP, MOCP, and really look at our 2050. We haven't even done our strategic planning, and that is an amazing document that if, like, what happened to it? So why are we, I don't understand why we would reinvent something that we touted as so powerful, and I believe we even won some awards for it. I was a brand new director at the time, so I'd like to see that go forward.
Thank you, Director Acton. Director Justice, in regards to the resolution that's on the floor?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I'm in favor of the recommendation, but I've got a question related to the report for Dr. Breen. I guess it was sort of, it seemed to be, because of the attachments, it seemed to be predicated on this attempt to do some bioregional planning with the region of Nanaimo. That didn't go forward, but you do note after that description that the CVRD could independently pursue a bioregional growth strategy, and I'm wondering whether that means an alternative level of regional growth planning, or whether that bioregional might also be a sort of a focus or a theme for a growth strategy. Can you speak to that?
Through the chair to the director. So the answer is to the question is that both are possible. It could still advance at a more discrete level, or it could be a broader level. That would be determined based on input. So the one that was advanced to the RDN, which was in response to their RGS referral, was specifically related to Area H and in the CVRD and Area A in the RDN, but it could take any form.
Thank you. If I might just briefly
follow up. Sure.
Thank you. So, and I think this speaks to Director Acton's point too. The regional planning function doesn't necessarily mean a regional growth strategy, because there are lots of different regional planning opportunities that might also be the subject of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Robin. Director Segal.
Thank you, Chair. I also love the concept, but I agree with Director Acton's comments. What I would like to do is help me guide this motion, if it's a motion, just to add to the recommendation that it also include letters to First Nations and not just to the municipalities. Am I making a motion to amend? Go ahead.
Can you hold on that thought? Because we've currently got Cowichan 2050 in place. which has been a fairly broad-reaching document, including our First Nations partners. I think this is more of a process that is required under our Local Government Act and the likes for proceeding to plan a step like a function. So I'm wondering if that's actually what we want to be doing at this time. We're sending a letter to our municipal partners saying, we're thinking of this, what are your thoughts? Get back to us. There will be, I'm sure, future steps beyond that. So I'm wondering, Ms. Breen or Mr. Robbins, any comment on the amendment of the resolution that's already been moved? Anyone? Help?
I'd leave it to the committee to determine whether you want to add that amendment at this stage in time.
Do you want me to withdraw it?
Well, I haven't accepted it yet, so it's not on the table.
It's not on the table.
I'm suggesting that it might not be appropriate in this specific sense, but at a future time to come.
Okay, thanks.
Director Douglas, on the motion.
Yeah, just quickly, I like the way you summarized it. I'm not sure how I feel about the regional planning service, but as you said, the motion is just 4 letters, 4 municipalities, give us a chance to think about it, we'll offer some thoughts, and maybe we'll support it, maybe we won't, maybe we'll get a mix of responses, but it really, like you said, what it boils down to is the regional district sending 4 letters to 4 municipalities to see what they think of this idea.
Excellent, thank you for that. Mr. Robbins, the resolution?
It has been moved and seconded that it be recommended to the board that a letter be sent to municipal councils inviting input on the potential establishment of a regional planning service.
Everyone understands the resolution? Call the question, all those in favor? Are there any opposed? We have a couple opposed, the motion carries. I'm looking at R2, R3, and R4 and thinking that we may have some discussion on those items. So we've been here 61 minutes. Let's have 9 minutes break and we'll see you back here at 10:40. Can I get you to take your seats, please? All right, everyone, we're streaming. Welcome everybody back. Mr. Robbins, I think we're on R2, are we not?
You are indeed. R2 is the report from Economic Development Division with regards to workforce housing survey results. This is for your information, and we have 2 staff members here to lead you through that report.
Welcome. I think we're doing 2 and 3, so if you could start with 2, if you've got any presentation around that, or are you going straight into 3?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning. I'm Brittany Taylor with Economic Development Division. I don't have a presentation. This report is for information and presents a summary of the results of the workforce housing surveys that were conducted by our division in partnership with Cowichan Housing Association last year. And a full report of the results is included as an attachment. The survey results are helping to inform the development of our Cowichan workforce housing strategy, which Mr. O'Riordan will speak to in the next item. And the report, the results have pointed to a number of possible actions that we could investigate further. And those investigations could be initiated before the full strategy is complete. Those include providing clarity around short-term rental allowances, relaxing zoning requirements for secondary suites and accessory dwelling units, allowing temporary housing in RVs, and requesting that Cowichan Housing Association explore the potential for becoming a housing developer or a housing authority. And yes, I'm happy to hear any feedback or questions from the committee. Thank you.
Go to Director Wilson first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Brittany. That's good stuff. First of all, I will say that I've been asked by you to say that this report was written by Chloe Boyle, and it's a really very good report. It does deal with a huge amount of good stuff. So thank you to Chloe for that. And so she's now got that, you know, she knows now. But basically, there's a lot of stuff in here, and I've asked the questions beforehand so that they know the questions are coming. But it is good, and it's one of the biggest things that we have, again, as Cowichan Housing Association have mentioned as well, and I'm pleased to see that you have been working with the Cowichan Housing Association on this as well. So basically, from this report, where do we go to from here to try and help things out?
So we are developing the workforce housing strategy, which we'll talk about next. So the information from the report is informing our work on the strategy. It's informing the engagements that were taking place. But there are a number of items that we've pointed out in the staff report that we could initiate more investigation on straight away, if that was the desire of the committee and the board.
Director Stone?
Yeah, I similarly want to compliment the report. I think it, you know, I said this previously too, validates a lot of what we hear on the street. As a business owner, I've been challenged with finding employees. In fact, all of my employees either live at home. They all live at home right now with their families, because it's really difficult to find workers, to the point where I actually changed my business because I couldn't find the skilled workforce I needed. And when I lost my last employee, said I couldn't find anywhere to live. And they moved away, and I lost that last sort of skilled employee that I could find. And spent 2 years looking for employees after that. And same thing was, housing was a barrier. So I think it's really important and provides us that next step. And I feel that sort of need to move toward action, because we have been talking a lot about these issues over the last few years especially, and it's becoming more and more of a crisis. And there was a phrase in there, I'd have to paraphrase because I didn't make a note of it, but that kind of said, this feels like a pending catastrophe to some degree. I'd argue that maybe we're already there. And it's not just the homelessness in the region, but it's that employee base that helps keep our economies healthy, helps keeps our communities healthy. When we can't get the employee base that we need to drive economic development, we often, in economic development in the past, it always seemed like, how do we attract more? How do we build more business? How do we? And now we're dealing with all these barriers that are in front of us to even maintaining the existing economic successes that we have in our communities. So I just want to compliment the report and say that, you know, other than the feedback that I'll provide throughout these processes, I'm very supportive of continuing to move forward, but knowing that we have to get to the point where we've got enough information and that we have a bias for action. I know municipally we're talking about a housing authority or a housing development corporation for the municipality, because in the throne speech, I'm hopeful there was a few lines in there assisting municipalities in building housing. So hopefully through BC Builds and BC Housing, we can actually start to build more housing. Whether the municipalities have to take it on or the regional governments have to take it on is yet to be determined. But I think we need to really take a proactive and action-oriented approach to resolving these housing challenges, because it's really impacting our economies, and that impacts the well-being of everyone that we serve at this table. So thank you. Good work.
I'll go to you in a moment, Director Wilson. I was just going to wrap up so we can get into number 3. And I just want to say this about this report, and very well-written report. And I was troubled as I was reading it, because it really quantified and put on paper, in black and white, all of those those thoughts and feelings and concerns that we've heard from our local chambers and from local development community. It's like, we kind of intuitively knew that this was going on out there, and there's the facts, there's the statistics right there. And I just look into the future, not too distant future, with hospital, schools, major projects, major renovations. Where are folks going to hang their hat at the end of the day? It's a real issue. Director Wilson, do you have anything to add before we go to the next slide?
One very quick, if I could, on a comment, and it came up from what Director Stone said, where the impacts on the workforce are huge here. And that's why I'm so glad this has come forward. But one of the sentences that really stood out to me in this particular report, and I can't find the page at the moment, I did make a note, which says that there are, everything that's going on, significant impacts throughout. That's the phrase that I'm looking at here. And that goes back to what we do at this table here. Every time we put the taxes up, we're going to go into that circle of round and round we go. Where does it stop? So thank you for this report. And just a quick dig about the taxes. Thank you.
I guess thank you for that, Director Wilson. And maybe we could all kind of refrain from zingers, but R3, Mr. O'Riordan, welcome.
Thank you, and good morning to the chair and directors. Good to see you all. As you're aware, we're undertaking a workforce housing strategy informed by the work of this the survey that you just heard about, as well as the Cowichan Housing Needs Assessment. For this strategy, we've...
Hang on for a second, Barry. Can you move a little bit to your right and point the mic towards you, and then everybody at home can see you.
Oh, hello, everyone. So, yes, thank you. Oh, actually, there we go. There we go, adjust it. We should fix the backlighting there too. So City Spaces Consulting has been hired by the CBRD to support the development of the strategy. And overall, the purpose of the strategy is to identify a collaborative and regional solution to workforce housing. Interesting that we're on the same day we're talking about regional collaboration on planning issues. It's also to identify potential solutions to attract and retain staff within various industries and to foster sustainable economic growth within the region. So we have a draft engagement plan developed, and we've begun to undertake the first round of engagements around this strategy, with the final public one being taking place this evening. And the purpose of the first round of engagement is to develop a framework for this strategy. So we're all kind of eager to rush to solutions. I know I am. But really taking the time to focus on, what's the framework for the solutions that we're going to provide has been the intent and focus of this first round of engagement, to go, okay, what is the workforce? How do we want to help them? Is there different segments within that we want to really focus this strategy work on? So I think it's been really valuable so far. So I'm looking forward to the work that our consultant is supporting us with. But in consultation with City Spaces and with staff, we identified a few additional engagement opportunities that I think will strengthen the overall strategy. And it's outlined in the report, and we're now seeking additional funding to undertake those activities. So those activities are identified in the report. If you have any questions or any comments, I'd welcome them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. O'Riordan. I've got Director Stone and Director Wilson. Is there anyone else that would like to pose a question?
I'm just going to move the thingy there, unless Director Stone is going to.
Is Director Stone going to move the recommendation?
I'll second Director Wilson's motion.
Wow, excellent. Teamwork, way to go. We've got a resolution that's moved and seconded. Does Director McClinton want to pose the question? Either of you want to speak to it? Director Manhas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And the workforce housing plan was all part of the Housing Association when we first formed it. So why is this $10,000 coming out of Function 121 Economic Development rather than this Cowichan Housing Association budget?
Mr. O'Riordan.
Through the chair, and thank you for the question. Cowichan Housing Association has been involved in this strategy development since day one in terms of the need for it and the concept, and worked on the survey report with us. But it was decided that because it's an economic development issue primarily that we're addressing, is that this work is being undertaken with support from them, but through this function. So given that we're undertaking this work and we're leading this project, this is where we're requesting the funding is coming from.
Ms. Mohan, do you have something to add?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I thought I might also just point out that while our Economic Development Division is a function of the CVRD, which we manage and have control over the day-to-day operations, and we set the priorities and we set out the work plans, et cetera. The Cowichan Housing Association is a funding contribution service that is established by bylaw. And while we have an agreement that lays out the broad functions of the Cowichan Housing Association, the CVRD doesn't get involved in the day-to-day operations of that organization. So it's more of a policy top-level direction, and that's defined by the funding contribution bylaw.
Thank you. Does that conclude your question, Director
thank you.
Manhouse? Got Director Stone, then Director McClinton.
What Ms. Mohan said. I actually, just because there seems to be some confusion, maybe just for those who weren't at the table, that this is a portion, what the Affordable Housing Contribution Service is broken up into two segments. There is some operational funding, some project development funding, and some capital funding reserves for affordable housing projects. That's not the entirety of the function of the Cowichan Housing Association. They have a whole bailiwick of work that isn't funded under that service. The service that we have is an annual contribution into a housing reserve, as well as some operational funding and a portion. And that's detailed both in the bylaw and the referendum question, et cetera. That being said, I'm supportive of this work. I was going to move it, seconded Director Wilson's motion, because this is that important work. We need to have that bias for action. We need to move through these consultation processes as quickly as we can and start finding ways to act on the recommendations. But there is some deeper dives that are necessary that are kind of highlighted in this next round of work that I think is a good place to support it, and for the extra that they're asking for, I think it provides good value. Thank you.
Director McClinton.
Through the chair, thank you. And thanks for the good work on this. Just comment first before my question. You know, when my dad bought his house, however long ago, it was 2.5 times the average salary. That was the average house. And now you're looking at anywhere from 8 to 12 times the average salary for somebody to buy a home. You know, we have thousands of immigrants moving here to support our aging population. And I would suggest that we have many of the tools that we need to make meaningful action on this issue. So I'm certainly in support of the work, you know, and I just would, you know, ask, you know, in your own opinion, what sort of movement or what sort of impact can this work have, like, on the ground? Like, what sort of impact will it have on you know, housing in our community?
Mr. O'Riordan.
Thank you for the question. It's maybe a loaded question because we haven't undertaken the work. And I think, you know, overall, like, this strategy is looking at the whole housing ecosystem. So we're looking at, okay, what can local government do? What can the nonprofit sector do? And what can private industry do? So I think part of it will be, you know, bringing those ideas to the forefront to go, what is possible, to kind of round out a whole ecosystem approach to providing solutions. So, you know, in other communities who've, yeah, you mentioned Tofino and others, they've gone down this road and they're talking to people there saying, you know, if you can get in and act on this now, then maybe you won't end up in our situation. You know, employers, there's no employer, I think 22% employers were interested or very interested in providing housing for employees, but I don't know if anyone is actually doing that right now. So, you know, bringing those ideas to the fore and having people think about them is going to be part of it. So I think just the discussions will lead to solutions, but there are clear gaps that are already there. It's like we don't have, you know, we don't have local government or a nonprofit developer are, you know, working in the sector. So that's, you know, something we already know that we could act on right now. So kind of speaking to Director Stone's things, like there are things we should do or could do right now, and other things will come up and will get prioritized based on, you know, the focus that we're going to have with this on the workforce. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, but I think a lot can be done, but it'll also require, you know, the board to understand this is a critical issue and we need to act on it. And also the broader community, you know, being supportive of that. Thank you.
And I had myself on the list, and I know we've heard a lot about complexities and holistic approaches to things, but sometimes just three little words, increasing housing supply, is, you know, a goal that we need to aim for. So, Director Justice, to close.
Thank you. I am one of those people who was not here when this thing was formulated, so I guess I've got some need for a little bit of background. I think you sort of touched on some of the, maybe answered the question in response to Director McClintock, but I'll ask it in sort of more general terms. I'm curious about how this work builds on the 2019 Cowichan and Attainable Housing Strategy, and I guess what exactly the workforce housing strategy is trying to achieve vis-a-vis the goals of the Attainable Housing Strategy, which are to achieve attainable housing for all residents of the Cowichan region.
Mr. O'Riordan.
Thank you for the question. Yeah, so I think overall this strategy will build upon the work from that Attainable Housing Strategy. It also brings into kind of sharp focus the work from the Regional Housing Needs Assessment and the progress that we haven't made in reaching the targets identified within that. We're about half of providing it, about half the number of housing units that are identified in that report as needing to be realized to have a balanced housing market. So, and then, you know, overall, this is looking at affordable housing, but it's really focusing that in terms of the overall labor force market to go, okay, a lot of work has been done on social housing and supporting vulnerable populations, but the focus of this work is going, the actual functioning of the regional economy is, you know, in some sort of crisis based on partially based on housing. So it's going, what can we really do, looking at that to really address those numbers, one, but also the labor shortage within the region, et cetera. So hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah.
Follow up?
Thank you. It does answer my question. I guess I've been reading about what Whistler's been doing over the last 45 years in workforce housing, and you know they've got two problems up there. One is that you know locals, housing for locals, and the other is housing for an sort of more or less itinerant workforce. And so you're probably looking at the Whistler model quite carefully and other resort municipalities. I mean, have there some similarities here with sort of an influx of retirees with lots of money that are sort of driving up costs? But is that would you see it as parallel or sort of fundamentally different?
I think some of the issues are going to be similar. I don't think we're quite at that stage, and we're not such a resort community. So I think it's going to be much more nuanced that and relevant to Cowichan. But I think some of the tools that are being applied in Whistler and other resort municipalities are good to look at as examples. And our consultant has done a lot of work. This is their focus area in terms of doing, they did a scan for the provincial government before this work at looking at all the measures other jurisdictions have been undertaking. So they've quite a lot of tools in their tool belt that we could apply. But then it's about, okay, what is relevant for Cowichan? What's going to be the biggest impact for the region? And then, raising those to the top in terms of where we can really focus our actions.
Thank you.
Director Douglas.
Yeah, just quickly, Mr. Chair, Councillor Manhas did bring up a point about the different roles of the Economic Development Cowichan versus the Cowichan Housing Association, and I think there would be some value perhaps in our strategic planning session to just discuss that a bit further and just make sure we're all 100% clear on the different roles and responsibilities, because under our agreement with the Cowichan Housing Association, we have funded strategic work around housing. As Director Justice pointed out, they did develop a attainable housing strategy that did involve significant engagement and outline some pretty detailed solutions as well. And it's from April 2019, so it's not really that old. And it would be, and I appreciate Mr. Reardon's comments about building on that, but I think there would be value in our strategic planning session just being really clear on who's doing what in terms of the different organizations that the CVRD funds or within the organization. Director McClintock, you brought up the point about like actual solutions that we might be able to implement. We have gone down that path quite far at North Cowichan right now, so we do have a affordable housing strategy that's going to come back to our council this spring, and we're looking at about 26 different tools that we could implement to immediately have some impact on the housing crisis. And these are all tools that have been implemented in other local governments across BC. Some have been in place for decades and all fit within our jurisdiction as municipalities. Happy to share that. I know Mr. Reardon's aware of that and has had discussions with our staff about making sure that this workforce housing strategy complements some of the work underway at the municipality. But happy to share that report with you if you want to take a look.
Thank you, Director Douglas. And just in conclusion, if this resolution is, oh, sorry, Director Staples, didn't see you there. Go ahead.
That's okay. I just wanted to sort of just add something going back to a resolution we had earlier about, looking at regional planning. And I think this is exactly one of the reasons why regional planning's been on the table since 1969, because there are all these pockets of things that happen in different jurisdictions. We work under different zoning, we have different bylaws, and there's areas that we really need to connect on so that we can effectively implement a lot of the different things that are needed by everyone in our community. So I feel like this actually speaks to, the strength of taking that forward. And it does take a lot of different, not one place or one jurisdiction or one organization has the capacity to do everything. And the fact that we're working together, mostly on this, it sounds like, but the fact that we're working together to take the strengths and what capacity there is at different organizations, including the regional district, to look at different aspects of this very complex situation, it really speaks to how well we've done without that regional strategy, but that we do recognize and have recognized for decades the importance of doing that and of working together to create a way forward. So I think that we all have to remember that everyone, including this organization and all the ones that we work for outside of this, are struggling with capacity. And so, as Mr. Reardon said earlier, there was a reason why they decided to go with the economic development leading this conversation. I see a lot of value in that for a lot of different reasons, because you have different connections to different demographics of people that are really important to have as part of this conversation. And one person, one organization, one function cannot do everything and be everything for everyone. And so I just wanted to acknowledge how important that is, that working together, and also that connection to, if we were to look at things more regionally, then what North Cowichan is doing would be, and what we're doing at the city and in other places would be more part of this conversation. And that's where I heard the presentation earlier, both on the regional function, but also from the work around reestablishing the Housing Coalition. That's where that's leading us to. So these are all really important pieces of work to build us to a place that we're aspiring to be. And a pandemic derailed all of us from that work. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that and thank you for the work that you're doing. And I really look forward to seeing where this goes and hopefully implementing it very, very soon.
Thank you, Director Staples. And just a brief comment. I've been mentioning to folks that have been doing studies, whether it be attainable housing, affordable housing, and the likes, but I think the workplace may have an application in that. Can you please ask the consultants, if this resolution is successful, to look at the either unoccupied or under-occupied residential properties in the recreation areas? There might be a better fit in workforce housing than some of the other housing needs that have been explored over the years. And I'll just thank you for taking that note. I'll go to Director McGonigal to close.
Maybe. Through you, Mr. Chair, just more of a comment, given some of the communication from senior level of government and the implementation of the housing ministry and the statements that communities with those housing needs assessments will be the first to look at whether or not they're meeting the goals. And within that assessment from 2019, I can assure you that the town of Lake Cowichan is not meeting those needs assessment goals, and we will be looked at by senior levels of government on how that impacts the gap in housing within each region. So just an important note that we're being watched.
And I'd maybe just respond to that. I would think that the development of a workforce housing strategy for the region with recommendations coming out of it would be a strong tool in response to that, to go, should there be funding available, then you might go higher up on the priority list for that.
Thank you, Mr. O'Riordan. I think we had the resolution moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Are there any opposed? None opposed, the motion carries. Thank you, Mr. O'Riordan. Thank you very much for the both of you today. We have next on the agenda, R4.
Which is a report from Recycling and Waste Management Division with regards to the 2023 Recycling Center's free store update. There is a staff report before you.
Are we going to have any staff get up before us?
Mr. Boyson is here.
I wouldn't be here either. Oh.
Welcome, Mr. Boyson. Do you want to make any introductory remarks?
I think I do. I think I'll try to anticipate that one. So thank you, Mr. Chair. So I think I don't have any specific comments about the free store, but our new manager, I'll count that as an introductory remark, is our new solid waste manager, Ilse Saradi, is on to present the report. So, and Mr. Stevens is also available to answer any questions you have. So I can leave it with Ilse if she has any initial comments, but I think they put a lot of time and consideration to this report. For us, this is a complicated topic and something we just want to make sure we flesh out the conversation really well with the board and that all the issues are addressed, and then we're happy to proceed however the board decides. So I'll leave it there if you have any questions, unless Ms. Saradi has anything she'd like to introduce to the board.
Thank you, Mr. Boyson, and this will be my last congratulations, Ms. Saradi, and welcome. And have you got any remarks or presentation or information you want to provide to the board before we go to questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, this report is in response to the November 23rd committee request to staff to identify option to reopen the free store. So in this report, we line out a little bit of the history of the free store and how it's reused as one of the key pieces in our solid waste management plan. Also, we set out some of the challenges that we have experienced operationally running the old free store model at the CVRD recycling centers. We also provide some information of other possible models that we have tried out, which includes collaborating with nonprofits that focus on reuse. And then we have also looked at what kind of services other regional districts are providing in terms of reuse at their facilities. And in the end here, we provide you with 3 options on how to proceed. One, which is looking at how to really enhance reuse through creating a reuse hub long term.
Thank you, Ms. Sarity. Director Stone.
Wish we had a recommendation other than for direction, because the recommendation is sort of clearly contained within the report, but I wouldn't necessarily want to put that on there either. Can we just go back to pre-COVID? You know, like, I think that the challenge is you know, it feels like, you know, we've heard from community members how they appreciated the free store is. I'm a huge proponent and appreciator of the free store, both from a drop-off and reuse perspective, and also as a bit of a ferret that likes to run around the free store and see what I can find. As you'll note, when we go on tours of Bings Creek, I'm always like, but that's not garbage. And I know that we pay for that disposal, right? So my sort of quick rationale was always, well, we're paying the tipping fee. So if it's garbage, right? But reading the report, I can understand that the issues are challenging, and there's many sort of hidden issues that haven't been necessarily brought to the forefront until we read through this report. So I'm not sure how we move forward. I think that, you know, I see what others do, and you know, I was very much a proponent and I continue to be a supporter of the free store, but I can't rationalize 6-figure investments required to maintain free stores. I don't feel it's justified even after reading the report. So I'm not sure how to move forward. I know that's not really helpful, maybe setting the stage for somebody else who's got a brilliant solution, but I'd like us to maintain the free store, but I can't justify the financial ask here to do so. So I'm really challenged with how we move forward because, you know, I'll put it the best way. This report is frustrating to me, and that's no disrespect to the staff that put it together. They're identifying real challenges that they've seen over time. But it's just, I think the frustration comes from, we've done things for a long time. I wasn't aware of any serious issues. COVID put a pause on many things, and too many things post-COVID are coming back with huge price tags attached just to resume the levels of service that we had previously. And I find that frustrating and hard to deal with, but I was hoping that we could have what I would consider maybe a more compromised, creative path forward. I don't see those options presented to us in this report, so I leave it up to the rest of the committee if somebody has a great idea. But my hope is to maintain the free stores, but at a cost that is more reasonable and responsible to the citizens that we serve. Thanks.
Thank you, Director Stone. I've got Director Acton and Nicholson on my list, but I see Mr. Stevens has popped up on the screen. And do you have anything you'd like to add?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have a lot to add at this point to the time as the report has been presented. We are open to suggestions and recommendations from the board. We have, you know, as it was mentioned, we have spent a lot of time working on this report and coming up with reasonable solutions. You know, I understand Director Stone's comments that the you know, nothing was brought forward in the past. You know, I think there's been some, you know, challenges that should have been brought forward. Unfortunately, they weren't. And some of the challenges that, you know, we've been bringing forward, you know, in our past reports and supplemental requests for additional staff at Bings Creek to ensure that we're maintaining the sites adequately and ensuring that we're maintaining our services to the public. The concerns that we have is if just reopening the free store and going back to the old model that we had, that it did take a lot of staff time to maintain the free stores and ensure the operation and keep those areas clean and keep them up to date, or not up to date, but kept clean every day. And then the conflicts that have been outlined in the report as well, that with residents and additional theft and other implications of the program. So we're just, trying to be cognizant of the staffing levels required to maintain all these different programs that have been expanding at all of our facilities, requiring more of attention and just, putting something back into place that's going to pull staff away from those other programs. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens. I've got Director Acton, Nicholson, and myself. Director Acton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I appreciate everything that Director Stone said, and I do know that the free stores become a challenge. But I think there's an opportunity here to do it a little differently, and and to be creative, to Director Stone's comment on creativity. So just like a couple things come to mind, obviously, they may not be great ideas, but having some partnerships in the community of secondhand resale, where staff could just maybe put it aside in a separate bin, so it's not necessarily being looked at through the public. But if they find, I know for myself, one time I was at the dump and somebody was throwing away this huge chest, beautiful wooden chest, and and then staff can, if they're able to apprehend these objects and put them into an area where it would be taken away by an organization, or as much planning from a nonprofit doing that. And the other idea is it seems to come down to education. So educating people. I know even my mom, being a senior, sometimes when there's an item she doesn't know, she knows it's not garbage, but she doesn't know what do you do with it. Do we have an opportunity to educate our residents on the side of recycling and reuse it? So then, what do people do with their items when they have a lamp that they no longer use anymore? Or so I think I think we could adopt a small creative model that's not going to be expensive. So I'd like to see staff have a little brainstorming session and come back with some creative ideas.
Thank you, Director Acton, Director Nicholson, myself, and Wilson. Director Nicholson, please proceed.
Thank you. I guess I think we've taken sort of a trying to do something good off the side of our desk approach to the way we've been operating the free store when it was operating. And I actually think it's a super important service, and I think that the demand is going to grow. There's more and more aging people who are downsizing their households. I'm dealing with it right now, and it's just such a shame to have to throw things out. And I don't believe that there are community non-profit organizations and secondhand stores are actually up to the challenge of what I think we need to try and address in the future. And I would actually, I like the option 3. I think we need to put a little bit of funding towards someone who can dedicate some time to working with the community. I would like us to become the reuse capital of British Columbia. And I think a different model is needed, but I think that we are uniquely in a position to provide that service of coordinating and helping the community make something happen. Yeah, and I think this is a really good opportunity for what I always think we should do is partner with the community on getting important things done. And so, yeah, I'd like us to pursue something, but not go back to the old way of doing it. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Nicholson. And I've got myself, Wilson, and Abbott on the list, and I'm going to ask for your forgiveness for my little soapbox that I'm about to jump on. So, a well-written report. I won't reiterate what's been said. Clearly, the expectation in my community was that when COVID was waning, we'd reopen the free stores. I've had discussions with staff, and they're telling us that the staff at the facilities are really not looking forward to going back to the old model. I get it. I love Director Nicholson's enthusiasm around being leaders in this. We're leaders in diversion in the province. Why can't we be leaders in this as well? And I'm going to relate pulling into Meads Creek with a perfectly fine one-owner couch in the back of my trailer, and on the scales, and a guy raced up beside me and, hey, what are you going to do with it? Don't go in there with that. Right? Went to a family that was able to use it. Didn't cost me $10 to drop it off. So there's potential here. And what I hear staff saying is, and I'm not going to call their concerns noise, but if we're having theft occurring of important equipment that staff need to operate, then I think staff have to figure out how to make sure that's secured. I don't understand the concept of people breaking into our facilities to steal stuff that they can take away for free during the day. I think that there's amazing potential in involving community groups and members in that managing of the people. Like, I wasn't aware before COVID that we had, thrift store hucksters and the likes that were waiting at the facility for people to drop stuff off so they could grab it right away before the general public got at it. But if that's the case, I think that can be managed. So what this brings me to is, we got 3 options on the list, and I'm not going back to my community and saying, oh yeah, we're gonna study it and do a pilot, but we're only doing it at Bings. Yeah, I'd be run out of town if I did that. We have to resource it in some fashion, and I'm wondering, much like Director Martman said about, what pillars form our community at one of our meetings recently, I think this is one of them. We stepped up with yard and garden waste a few years ago and said it's going to continue to be free. I think it's time to step up in this area, and I've had some chats with our CAO, and even if we were to decide today and send it to the board and recommend that we reopen at all 3 facilities, we probably wouldn't be underway until July anyways. So some of that innovative thinking, we might be able to look at 6 months of operation for half of that 217 and include it in this year's budget. So I'd be inclined to go in that direction. I think if there's something that we all value and our community values, then that might be something that should be included in our budget, and we should be asking staff to get free stores open as quickly as possible. And one last thing, and I know that when Meads Creek was redesigned and Peerless, and to some extent Bings, free store was, the space for free store was a critical component of that. It's in the plans. So I don't know if they've been reallocated to other things, but we need to make that space available for this particular service. It's loved by our communities. So that's my little soapbox. I would be interested what the rest of you think. I've still got Director Wilson and Abbott on the list, and I'll put Director Stone on after that. Director Wilson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be brief. We cannot be all things to all men, and that's what we're trying to do here. There are already many avenues for people to get rid of the stuff that they no longer think is necessary. I have never yet taken anything to a free store. I have always found somebody who will take it by social media, by whatever. But it's the cost here, I can't believe some of the costs here. And given the present projected rises in our 2023 budgets, we can't continue to load the residents up and their ability to pay, because we're now reaching that place where people are saying, I cannot afford to do this. I can't go with either option 1 or 2. There's far too much cost involved here, considering there are other avenues that can be used. So I would be happy with option 3. Thank you.
Director Abbott.
Chair, thank you. I would like to echo what Directors Acton and Nicholson have talked about, and I would love to compliment option 3. And anecdotally, I have at the end of my driveway a shelf, and I merchandise free stuff all the time. In fact, the sign that said Hillbills Free Stuff got taken. So I think a lot of us, through our very active, CVRD has a very active app for waste. We could have feature weekends where we're saying, let's have free stuff at the end of the driveway. Build it up, complement option 3, where people take stuff with all those GHGs to get the stuff to Peerless, Mead, and Bings. But get rid of the stuff closer to source, and it's amazing. In fact, my free stuff becomes a recipient. People drop stuff off on my place, and then I have to re-merchandise their stuff. So people are constantly looking for free stuff.
Thank you, Director Abbott. I've got Director Stone and Nicholson and Martman. Director Stone.
Well, yeah, and I was actually moved by Director Nicholson's comment too about number 3, and collaborating. Like I think there's streams here that we could access that do exist, like the NCORP facilities. They actually get paid to collect electronics and such, right? So if we're able to work with them to start sort of diverting our diversion, right? So that we say that these are the places they go. And if anybody drops off electronics at your house, Hillary, let me know. But, you know, part of what our business does is we recondition and redo vintage electronic stuff. So I think there may be entities out there that if there's a pathway provided to access these things. And Ladysmith will also do spring cleanup, and part of spring cleanup is that week before when people put things out at the end of the driveway. And ironically, that's how I met one of the councilors on our council. He put chairs out at the end of the driveway, and I met him when I scooped in to pick them up, and now they're out around our fire pit. So, yeah, I think maybe there are some more creative ways to do it. I just can't, you know, in this sort of financial environment, I just can't support putting more money into the free stores. So, you know, I would probably support, if a motion was made, option 3, and then to monitor it and see how successful we are in sort of coordinating and maybe coming up with some lower cost strategies that we could deploy off the side of staff's desks that wouldn't create the cost and the capacity burden on the staff, but still make sure that we're doing our best to ensure that we divert that stuff from landfills. Thank you.
I'm going to go to Director Martman, Douglas, and then Nicholson. Director Martman.
Thank you. And, you know, I think there's general agreement that reuse is something that we all would encourage, and whether it's at the end of your driveway or at a facility or at someone else that has a business that runs it. And there's linkages here. Why is the need so great? And those needs are linked right to affordable housing. And if we're trying to encourage affordable housing, well, someone's got to put a couch in it, with all due respect to Director Morrison or Chair Morrison. So it's really about how do we try to facilitate some of the things. And I like the idea of brainstorm and asking staff, you know, maybe to do a bit of an appreciative inquiry out there about where are these things working. I've heard anecdotally Thetis Island has a process, but one of the things that will come out of it, I think, will be the use of volunteers. And how do we encourage that? Because I think there is an appetite for people that are feeling that they're linked into helping others, whether it's downsizing their house, and someone can say, hey, it's not just a volunteer at a facility or at an organization, but we will come and help you downsize too. So, you know, all these things linked together. I think option 3 is the only really palatable one for me, because I just don't think my area is willing to put money into it, but I think they would be willing to volunteer. So how do we engage them? Thank you.
I think that was a question for staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. we as staff, I just want to reiterate that we are very supportive of reuse, and part of option 3 here, as mentioned, we have been looking at collaborative models, working with, reached out to Salvation Army. They stated that they did not have capacity to engage with us. Habitat for Humanity, as you've read in this report, have been working with us, and they are very keen to continue this collaboration. Similar to us, though, it comes down to resources for them. When they run the pop-up donation drop events with us, they have one paid staff member and one volunteer. And similar to some of you pointed out, there's a lot of material that is coming into us that could be reused. And having dedicated personnel to help identify and divert that is critical to reduce landfill waste. And as also mentioned in the report, convenience is such a key factor here. A lot of residents are not willing to drive around to different locations to drop material off. So yeah, option 3 in terms of what staff feels is the best way forward, without spending more money, of course. We're also supportive of the other 2 options if resources are allocated, because we do really believe in reuse. Option 3 is something that we could continue to explore. And as I mentioned too, we are doing a 10-year plan for the Bings Creek location and talking to organizations like Unbuilders who deconstruct homes. There's a huge need for being able to store lumber and other like appliances until sale. So I'm hoping that there's some kind of grant funding out there that we could eventually apply for create this big reuse hub and really do what Director Nicholson mentioned, like be leaders in reuse. I'm not sure if I answered the question, so feel free to follow up.
Well, that was helpful, but can I just pose the question, has there been any data collected on the, since the Free Store closed, on additional well, it wouldn't be tipping, but additional costs for transport of additional volumes of garbage? Or would that be something that staff would have to determine on a going forward basis?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I know I think it'd be hard to pull that data out. We know that we closed the free stores during COVID because there was a lot of unknowns and operational priorities closed. We also have seen in our data, and I think this is seen elsewhere in other regional districts, that, waste disposal did go up during COVID. I can't say with any kind of confidence that that's a result of the free store. So we don't have that data.
Thank you, Ms. Cerruti. Director Douglas, then Nicholson.
Hey, Mr. Chair, based on the discussion, would you like me to move option 3?
Well, I'd like to hear from Director Nicholson before we take a motion on the floor.
All right. Yeah.
So I am wondering, I have a question for staff. I really think option 3 is the way to go, but it will only work if we have staff capacity to actually make it happen. So my question is, do you currently have the resources to do this in a meaningful way? Because I don't think off the side of the desk is actually, I think we need to do a little bit more than that to get it off the ground.
Who wants to take the resources question? Mr. Stevens.
Sorry, Mr. Stevens, you get a chance. Go ahead.
Thank you, Director Nicholson, through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, so, we've been working collaboratively with organizations such as Unbuilders and Habitat for Humanity to develop these programs and move them forward. And we've been working with other businesses such as Salvation Army to, again, move forward with these programs. So it's developing that appetite within these businesses to move forward with these programs. But the amount of labor that we've had to put into developing these programs is quite low in comparison to the labor that would be required to actually run the free store.
Ms. Cerruti, anything to add?
Thank you. Through to you, Mr. Chair. Sorry, I'm still learning all the terminology.
You're doing great.
Yeah, I appreciate Director Nicholson's comment. Our work priorities for this year is going to be a lot on curbside collection. So, and we are short staffed right now. So it is something that we've been managed to do a little bit of on the side of our desk. But if we want to give this a real push, we would need to allocate some more staff resources to this. But in terms of what Mr. Stevens said, like these pop-up events, they are primarily run by Habitat for Humanity. So it's just a matter of cross-promoting them. But for building a more robust program, it will require some staff time and effort in addition to like looking for grants and working collaboratively with all the different organizations to creating a space. So yeah, the short answer is yes, more resources.
Thank you, Ms. Sarity, and I'll go back to Director Douglas, but I'm just wondering if there is a possibility to have a more fulsome description of what staff would do if option 3 was moved, seconded, and recommended to the board. Director Douglas, I'll go to you.
Yeah, I can hold off if you like, or someone else can move it.
Well, I guess the issue that we're facing is even option 3 is going to require some resources. And that's, you know, I think that there's an appetite around the board to look at that. I see you, Director Wilson. So at this point, I don't know, other than what they've already been doing is going to be much more than they'll be able to achieve in this year unless there's additional resources. So I'm thinking we need to hear a little bit more about what level of resources would be required to flush out a fulsome number 3. And I see Mr. Boyson approaching the lectern, so any thoughts on that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So staff have been, in my time working with them, they've been moving this discussion forward and working with partners. It's been an active conversation for them. It is an important issue that they care about, and they think there's a benefit here. But I think the next step would be that I think it'd be fair for us to bring another report back that expands this out a little bit, the discussion about what this can do and what funding is needed to take it. So I think getting this clarity about how to move forward, then we can just say what kind of funding we need in a report that could come up. We can get that together fairly quickly. I'll talk to my staff about how that could work. So.
Okay, so I'm going to go to Director Wilson, McClinton, and then back to Director Douglas to perhaps make a motion. Director Wilson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I could move option 3 right now, but this is labelled as a free store. Ain't no such thing. There is no such thing as free. We are going to pay for it. They've got the numbers in there right now, 217,000 on one and 134,000 on another, and an unknown amount on option 3. So let's stop beating about the bush. This is not free. It's going to cost us money. So let's go along with what you've just suggested there. Bring us back more information, and then we can vote. But right now, I'm in total favour with option 3. Thank you.
Director McClinton.
Through the chair, thank you. Yeah, just sort of sitting here listening to everybody, lots of discussion, it's good. To Director Wilson's point, be in favor of possibly putting out an RFP for some minimal charges associated with it. I think if we give this to the private sector, they can, probably somebody out there might be able to make this make sense, with some parameters around what something might cost or along those lines, to manage it, give it away for free and put that cost burden on the rest of people. I just think there's an opportunity there. So if in the report, I would like to see that option possibly included.
Thank you, Director Douglas.
I saw some more hands go up. Maybe I'll let somebody else move it.
Director McGonigal.
I have it now. The technology is good when it works. The only way I could support option number 3 is if it's implemented in all 3 facilities. I think a centralized based system does not accommodate the reductions that we're looking for. If prior to COVID, the free stores were in all 3 facilities, then certainly option 3 could be implemented in all 3 facilities moving forward as a pilot.
Thank you, Director McGonigal. Director Douglas.
Oh, so, Mr. Chair, do you want me to move it with the addition of language around coming back with a report? So,
Absolutely.
so direct staff to prepare a report on continuing to work with the local reuse organizations and all three recycling facilities?
With appropriate resources required?
Yeah, what you said. All right. I'll move that.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
My contribution for the
Mr.
day.
Robbins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Moving on to reports R5 through R8, actually. Mr. Wainwright is here to take your questions with regards to the recommendations. R5 and R8 actually all have to do with potential planning grant funding for Emergency Management Division.
I'm anticipating moving swiftly through these. Director Douglas, go ahead.
Hey, Mr. Chair, I thought the reports were really well laid out in terms of the grant applications that the staff are applying for, and I wondered if we could move R5, the recommendations from R5 to R8 as a package.
All the way around the room. Director Wilson, I'll consider them moved as a block, moved and seconded. I'll go to Director Wilson.
Yeah, what he said. But question for you, this is all grant-based. What happens if we don't get the grants?
Then the projects don't move ahead.
Okay, good stuff.
I think it doesn't affect our overall capacity. What we're looking at this year is really adding to existing capacity.
Good. Thank you very much. Yeah, if it's moved and seconded,
You won't be coming back to us looking for requisition dollars to make these happen if we don't get the grants, so that's a good thing. Any other
That's a
discussion?
different meeting.
Director Martman.
Thank you, and thank you for all these reports. Enjoyed reading through them. And, but R7, the EOC grant application,
Yes, sir.
page 2, 5th bullet.
Mm-hmm.
There's a place called the North Diamond. It sounds great. But I'm just curious if that was intended to be just the tip of the diamond or North Oyster?
North Oyster.
Okay, thank you.
Good catch.
It shows directors are reading their reports. Excellent. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Well done, Mr. Wainwright.
pass that along to April.
Well, yes, thanks to April as well.
Thanks very much.
Where does that leave us?
R9, report from the Facilities and Transit Division with regards to 2023 Green and Inclusive Community Buildings Grant application. There's a two-part recommendation, and I see that,
Mr. Elzinga's in the room?
no, I think I see Mr. Wakeman popping
Mr.
in.
Wakeham? Oh,
Was he
there
on the
he is.
screen there? Yes, he is.
Mr. Wakeham, have you got anything to present, or are you just here for questions?
Just here for questions, Mr. Chair. The report, I think, explains what we're trying to do here.
We haven't got Mr. Elzinga up yet, but any questions around the recommendation in R9? We've got it moved and seconded. Go to Director Abbott.
I just wondered whether the deadline to have the grant application is challenging, Mr. Wakeham.
Mr. Chair, through to Director Abbott, there is a mistake in the report. The deadline is actually February 28th, not February 23rd. So staff are going to be working diligently right after, if we get approval today, on the application to get it submitted.
Thank you.
A whole extra 5 days. What a luxury. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Robbins?
Moving through your agenda, no unfinished business, nothing under new business. Moving to question period.
Is there anybody registered online to
No one
pose a
online.
question? Is there anyone in the gallery that would like to pose a question? Seeing none,
You have no closed session, then a matter of motion to adjourn.
moved and seconded, all in favor? Thank you, everyone. It's been a great meeting.
Picture day in 12 minutes, so somebody find Jesse a tie.
There we go. Well done, everyone. Thank you.